Hey friends, welcome to the start of our James Rizzi inspired Cityscape art project. What you're going to need for this portion is a large piece of white paper, a ruler, and a black crayon. Now it's important that you draw this part with black crayon and not marker, because we will be outlining a lot of this with marker and then painting it with water, which will turn it into a watercolor paint. So you want to make sure that you are not drawing this with marker, because if you do, when you paint over it, that's going to smear and kind of bleed and mess up your project, okay? So you're also going to get, for today, this handout. Now I want to explain this handout to you. So one is for step one, okay? And we're going to go through each of these steps together. But we've got step one, step two, step three, and step four. So you can't complete this step until you've gone through all these steps first. Does that make sense? So the first thing that we are going to do is create our buildings going across our paper. So you need to make sure that your paper is horizontal, straight across this way, okay? And you don't have to use your ruler to measure out these buildings if you don't want to. 100% up to you. You also don't have to do the sizes and shapes that I'm doing. You can make this up on your own, and please make it up on your own. Don't do exactly what I'm doing, because how boring would that be? So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to start drawing out these buildings. And as you can see, some are really skinny, some are taller than others, some are shorter, some are wide. Have fun with it. Make it up, be inspired by James Rizzi and his crazy cities, okay? So that's the first thing you're going to do. So I'm going to start out and probably do just one building kind of in the middle of my paper. I use a ruler just so that I can have a nice straight line. Again, you do not have to use a ruler. 100% up to you. I'll scoot my ruler over just a little bit. Okay, you can turn your paper if you want. So here's the top of my first building. Now make sure that none of your buildings touch the top of your page, because you're going to be adding all these fun different shapes to the tops of your buildings, okay? So do make sure that your building does not go off the top of your page. Okay, I think my next building down here is going to be a bit shorter. But I don't want my buildings to finish there, so I'm going to add another one that's behind this one. So they're overlapping. Here we go. Okay. Maybe I'll do one more short building right there. So now I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 buildings so far. You need to do at least 6 buildings on your paper. If you want to do more than that, absolutely. But I want you to do at least 6. Okay. There's number 5. And then my 6th building is going to come up a bit behind this one. And across. Okay, so I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 buildings. So that is the first step of your project. And think about different, like I said, some of your buildings can be more narrow, some can be just kind of a rectangle, some can be a little bit shorter and wide, totally up to you. I would not make your buildings much skinnier than this one, because you're going to have a hard time fitting the faces and doors and windows and stuff. So maybe nothing, too much smaller than this, but it's your building, your city, go for it any way that you see fit. So that's the first step that we're going to do. The second step is going to be to add tops to our buildings, okay? And you can add round tops, you can add circles, triangles, any shapes you want to make up. These are not the only shapes you can use. These are here just to give you an idea for different things that you can add to these buildings. So for instance, if I wanted to add these little triangles right here, maybe I would go right here and right here. And there's the top of that building. Maybe for the top of this building, I want to do kind of a bubble shape. I don't know, just for fun. And then for this one, I could do kind of a gradual and maybe even a circle up top. Why not? Okay, this is a crazy, crazy city. Obviously, it's going to have faces and things like that on it. So don't make it too normal. How boring would that be, right? So I have drawn at least 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 buildings. I have my tops added to them. My next step will be to add the crazy, silly faces. Now here's where you get to just really have fun. As you can see on this page, I have tried to do a variety of faces, anything just wacky and weird. You have this face idea sheet that you can refer to. This does not mean that these are the only faces you do. These are just to kind of get those gears turning in your brain, get those ideas working. If you don't want to use any of these faces and you want to come up with all of your own faces, by all means, please go ahead and do that, okay? So these are just literally to kind of get you an idea. And if you're having a hard time coming up with ideas, you can put these exact faces on your building also, okay? So you can use these faces or not. These are just to give you different ideas. Maybe you really like these eyes, but you really like this mouth, but you really like this nose. You could combine those or make things up, have a theme, 100% up to you. So I do want you to know that this idea sheet is just to give you ideas. Please don't draw on these idea sheets because these will be taken back up and reused for another class. So don't draw on these. These are just for you to hang on to and look at for different ideas, okay? So I'm going to start adding faces to my buildings. You want to make sure that you're only doing it on the top portion of your buildings because remember, we need to leave space at the bottom for windows and doors and things like that, okay? So your faces are going to need to go up towards the top of your buildings. So you wouldn't want to fill this whole thing with a face. You want the face to go just up there, okay? So maybe for this guy or gal, I'm going to add a few faces, different pieces. For this part of the project, I'm going to speed up the video so you don't have to just be stuck watching me draw the whole time. If you need to pause the video or slow it down for any reason, go ahead and do that. But like I said, this is just for you to take your time and have a blast. The crazier the faces, the funnier the faces, the more fun this art project is going to be. So don't be afraid to be really creative and wild and funky and just do some fun stuff on the buildings. Okay, so now I've made it through step 1, 2, and 3. Okay, I've drawn my rectangles. I've added triangles and circles and shapes on the top, and I've added my funny faces to my buildings. The final part of the drawing portion of this project is to add doors and windows to the bottoms of your buildings, okay? So, for instance, I've drawn a bunch up here. You don't have to use these exact ones that I've drawn. Pick out whatever you want, come up with your own ideas. Both is completely fine with me. I have another handout for you. It's got a few different doors and a few different windows. These are just to give you ideas, okay? Come up with your own stuff, be super creative. You guys are amazing. I'm not even gonna pretend like this is enough of what would be, you know, in your head of an imagination that you could use to add to these. So, like I said, you can use these exact ones and just plug them in, or make up your own stuff for your buildings. Either is fine with me. I'm going to speed my video up and add my windows and doors just to give you an idea. If you need to slow the video or pause it, feel free. So I am completely finished with drawing my James Rizzi inspired city. I have all my buildings. I have tops to each of my building. I have faces on all my buildings, and I have windows and doors. The next part will be adding color, baby, color to our beautiful masterpiece.